Bubblegum.
Okay.
Alright, let's go.
Suddenly, aquaphobia.
Uh-oh.
Or hydro.
What's behind us?
It's a Lucent Knight. It's a Lucent Knight. When Bungie isn't too busy snorting bright dust in the back of the office, they actually make some pretty good content. If you tell a Destiny player that, they'll never believe you though, probably because they're too busy trying to perfectly optimize playing the game as little as possible, but I digress. And this right here is the newest example of that good content that actually doesn't make you question why you spent the last 9 years of your life playing this game. No, not the fishing, although that stuff is pretty good, but this. Ghosts of the Deep, the newest dungeon to Destiny 2, and in my opinion, probably the best. Oh wow, man, so is this part of the new season? No, it's not. And not only is this probably the best dungeon they've released thus far, but it's also a better raid than Root of Nightmares, requiring actual brain power, at least when blind, and a semi-competent damage setup since you can't literally just sneeze on the bosses to make them fall over. Look, I'm not trying to shit on Root too much, but it's just so easy. And the armor, whew, it looks so good. It's probably one of the best sets they've ever made. I can't wait to see what the weapons look like. You're lucky you've got good perks. But enough talking about it. What's it like to actually play? Well, despite the fact that the first encounter is essentially a carbon copy of Shattered Throne's opening, but with a new failure condition, because reskinning weapons just wasn't enough, it's honestly pretty solid. The massive open area allows for a nice variety in combat since you aren't going to fall to your death anywhere, and even allows you to utilize your Sparrow for movement, giving a nice flow that you normally wouldn't have in an in-game encounter. And let's be honest, it's a good thing to let you summon your Sparrow because you spend more time frickin' moving than actually playing. You're supposed to follow a Wrathborn trail from floating ball to floating ball, kill the Hive Guardian, and then dunk the buff you received at the proper deep sight statue. Easy enough, but they want you to do this 4 times. Which honestly makes the encounter run a bit long. 3 times I think would have been more than enough, but hey, you can spawn the tank we used in the Red War, so that's something. Otherwise, the opening is pretty good. Lots of enemies to kill, RNG variety for the symbols, keeping each pull fresh, and a timer that kills you if you don't act quickly. I give this encounter a Thunderlord out of 10.
Are we back to the same spot? Or
No, we went down. Do you have any form of, like, spatial awareness?
Making sure. Alright.
Moving on, we immediately reach a pretty lengthy section between the first 2 encounters. Lots of platforming, vertical movement, and minor combat sections, but honestly, I really enjoy it. Xivu Arath gets to show off her Yandere brother complex if you go after the collectibles, giving more context to the story of this dungeon, and I gotta say, the voice actress did an absolutely amazing job filling that role.
My brother is vanquished. Court scattered. Temples ransacked.
When it comes to exploration, atmosphere and scope is something really important to me, and it's why Kingsfall is probably my favorite raid, even though every mechanic is served to you on a plate. But it provides a badass level of scope and scale, storming the castle to overthrow the king, killing all of his subordinates along the way. Ghosts of the Deep is no different, delving deep into an arcology facility on Titan, only to find yourself inside what feels like a cut area from Meridia and Super Metroid. The Methane Sea is equally terrifying as it is beautiful. And honestly, while the diving mechanic is simple, it's a nice pace breaker. I mean, come on, what's more interesting to you? Walking along a flat surface for however long, or diving through a water tank stealing all the air bubbles from your fire team because no one can fucking stay next to each other to save their life? Obviously, you wouldn't want to go overboard with these types of sections, but I don't think it personally overstays its welcome. But if you're like Jez and have the patience of an enraged 5-year-old, you might just rip your hair out. Once you finally do make it through and have boarded a sunken Lucent Hive ship, and hey, any excuse to fight Lucent enemies is a good excuse, you'll be greeted with the Hive Guardian, who's been waiting in this exact spot underwater for the last 45 minutes while you died over and over to a lack of oxygen and crushing water pressure. But now that you're vulnerable with your pants down, the second encounter begins. As far as mechanics go, you've got a mixture of kill the ads and complete an underwater chase sequence with impaired movement and resource management. It's pretty fun. Ad density has been a huge topic ever since Chosen, and it's no slouch here. Constantly respawning ads keep you on your toes, and your reward for doing the mechanics successfully is to kill an even stronger enemy and then dunk a buff at a statue while all the ads are firing at you. In a fire team of 3, this goes pretty smoothly, but I can see how it can get pretty overwhelming while solo. As for the actual damage phase, the boss is a Lucent Knight, so if you aren't in a well or have some kind of protection or healing, you can easily die to a super, especially when he throws both shields at you. It's a pretty fast-paced damage phase, so I'd say it's fun. My team enjoys using swords, but there's a lot of pretty viable options for this boss. I give Ekthar a Lament out of 10. Unlike the space between the first and second encounter, the lead up to the final boss is a lot shorter, with the main centerpiece being a hall that gave me Shrieker Room vibes from the Darkblade Strike in Destiny 1. Make it to the boss room and you'll have a bombshell immediately dropped in front of you. Oryx has apparently just been chilling at the bottom of the Methane Sea for some time, and I don't even want to know how pruny he's gotten. But the mechanics for this encounter take place on top of his corpse. If fighting another boss on top of the corpse of a king you slaughtered 8 years ago isn't badass, I don't want to know what is. Now this is by far, at least for me personally, the most fun dungeon boss we've had yet. It's pretty involved, with a lot of steps to actually get to the damage phase, and the way the mechanics are set up, it was a ton of fun trying to figure them out blind. To start in the encounter, you gotta kill this Hive Ghost, because apparently Oryx's body is alive, but his soul is dead, and they couldn't resurrect him because of that or something. I don't know, but could you imagine fighting Oryx again and he just beats a Nova Bomb at you? No, just me. Anyway, after you kill the ghost, a ton of ads spawn alongside a deep sight bubble in the room. All the while, the boss is summoning a fleet of Lucent moths to chase down the flame that is your life. Once you've survived the moth armada, you activate deep sight to figure out which body parts you need to spank our main man Vorlog at. Something that we didn't figure out for quite some time because we were too busy dying to the Vestige of Light buff to know why. Now, he doesn't have to die at the body part, but you need to be standing in it. Once you see the spellbinding circle light up, you'll know you're good. One cool thing I really like about this mechanic too is killing Vorlog at one of the body parts draws the boss over to that area. It's not a big deal, but it's nice to see your actions affect the flow of the encounter. And maybe if you were having issues with the boss blasting you, you could draw it to another area or something. I don't know, it's just a nice small touch. After you've lit up all 3 body parts, and for some reason you always have to do the heart last, I don't know why, you get to do the next mechanic, because you're still not to damage just yet. On each side of the room, there's a water tunnel separating you from one of 3 Hive Guardians. You'll become acquainted with these tunnels very quickly, because you'll be using them as temporary safe zones all throughout the fight. When you get inside of the next room, a Lucent Guardian will be chilling with a rune above its head, telling you where you need to dunk the Vestige buff after killing it. Also, you need to make sure you remember which rune it is, because it vanishes from the sky once you've killed it. And I swear I went on autopilot and didn't look at the rune at least 5 different times, to the point I would joke about forgetting it, and then proceed to get distracted and forget about it again. Not my finest moment. But once that's all said and done, you can finally begin damage. After you break the boss's shield, because apparently it needs a shield for some reason after you did all that work, you realize one thing. This boss has a lot of health. Now, the final boss of Spire of the Watcher also had a ton of health, but it was made even worse by the fact it was a wyvern, and you couldn't easily deal max damage to it. Here, it's much less of an issue, at least in a team of 3, especially if you're using a competent damage build. With the rocket setup, you can easily 2-phase this boss, and I've even seen some people 1-phase it. But the boss also likes to teleport, so unless you use something like Arbalest or like immediate tether to stagger her at the start of damage, it's gonna be a pain. There might even be other ways to deal with this teleporting mechanic, but if you don't, it becomes a massive pain, and was something we had to deal with on our first run through. Do that enough times, and congratulations, you're finished. Oh god, no, wait, the ghost. Overall, Ghost of the Deep is a really fun experience. The weapon designs may be disappointing compared to the armor. I mean, really, Bungie, is it too hard to make a weapon and armor set that match thematically? Or even give us adept weapons from Master Mode, but The perks are really good, the story's good, the encounters are fun, armor is gorgeous, probably the best all-around dungeon experience they've made thus far. Although there are two small things that bug me. First, where did our solo flawless shaders go, Bungie? You did it once for Grasp and then never again. You know, for the dungeons we pay extra for. And speaking of solo flawless, why is the normal completion emblem way more cool looking than the solo one? Like, I know it's subjective, but I mean, like, come on, look at these. This is like the second or third time this has happened. I swear to God, if it happens one more time, I'm going to lose it. So yeah, good dungeon. Whisper of the Worm out of 10. Buy more silver. I'm kidding.